Before the imperial examination, I played a little trick and broke my husband's leg to stop him from going to the capital for the exam. After that, I tacitly allowed the pretty widow to enter my husband's bedroom. Not long after, my husband took out the divorce papers for me to sign and also wanted to take all of my dowry, but I uncharacteristically agreed, fine. The villagers all said I had gone mad, but they don't know that in my last life, I gave everything I had to support my husband in passing the imperial examination. But after he passed the exam, he turned around and married the Prime Minister's daughter, demoting me from wife to concubine, saying my merchant family background would only tarnish his bright future. Even my own son said, "Mother, father is doing this for the good of our family. How could you ruin the bigger picture out of jealousy?" I was confined to the back courtyard and died of depression. In this life, I will sever his path to success with my own hands. I was reborn 2 days before my husband, Chen Jiru, was to leave for the capital to take the imperial examination. He was in high spirits, having a farewell drink with his classmates and boasting about the glory he'd have after passing the imperial examination. When I pass the exam, I will definitely bring my mother and Jin Tao to the capital to enjoy the blessings of a titled lady. He was saying nice things, but I could clearly see the contempt in his eyes. In my last life, I was so moved when I heard him say this that I stuffed all the money I had saved over the years into his travel bag. He used that money to bribe officials and build connections in the capital, rising rapidly through the ranks. And me, I was left by him in the countryside to serve his elderly mother. But what I got in the end was a letter of divorce and the news of him marrying the Prime Minister's precious daughter. He said that I, a merchant's daughter, reeked of money and wasn't worthy of his status as a Tanhua scholar. Now, looking at his hypocritical face, I just feel disgusted. "Husband, I am going out for a bit to get some meat and make you guys an extra dish to go with your drinks." Chenjiru's classmates all praised me for being virtuous and capable, and he really enjoyed it, lifting his chin at me. "Don't be stingy with the money. Get another pot of wine. We brothers won't go home until we're drunk today." Late at night, when all was quiet, Chenjiru finally saw off his classmates and drunkenly stumbled into the bedroom. As usual, I brought him hot water to wash his face and helped him lie down. It is just that on the path he had to take to the latrine, I secretly splashed a ladle of lard. That was a little extra butcher Jang at the village entrance gave me when I bought meat from him just now. In the middle of the night, there was a muffled thump, followed by Chenjiru's shrill, miserable scream. "Jin Tao, come quick. Something broke my leg." When I went out, Chenjiru was on the ground rolling and clutching his right leg, his forehead covered in cold sweat. I squatted down and pretending to help him up. I secretly used the hem of my undergarment to wipe clean the solidified lard. Then, while fetching water to clean his wound, I used the hot water to melt the icicle on the ground that had been deliberately frozen into the shape of a dagger. "Husband, maybe you just happened to fall on a rock." After finally calming Chenjiru down, I went to call my mother-in-law for help. It is all my fault for making my mother-in-law fermented rice wine today. She drank too much of it, was sleeping like a log, and it took a huge effort to wake her up. The village doctor isn't home again. I heard he picked up some money today and happily went out to drink with courtesans. I ran to several places before I managed to get him to treat Chenjiru's injury. The doctor asserted that Chenjiru's leg is badly fractured, and since it has been delayed for so long, he won't be able to get out of bed for a year or a year and a half. Even if it can be healed, he might become a cripple later on. Going to the capital for the imperial exam has become a pipe dream. Chenjiru's path to success was completely severed in front of the latrine. From now on, it will only be filth. For the next few months, Chenjiru's wails and my mother-in-law's curses sounded before me every day. "You jinx. You wretched woman who brings bad luck to her husbands." My mother-in-law's spittle almost sprayed onto my face, but I kept my head down, silently doing laundry and cooking. Contrary to my usual self, I didn't argue with her. I still need to save my strength to plot for other things. Chenjiru lay in bed, going from blaming heaven and earth to taking his anger out on others, complaining that the medicine was too bitter and the food too hard. If it weren't for you, you stupid woman. How could I have fallen? Why didn't you light the lamp? You did it on purpose. I nodded obediently. It is my foolishness. Then let's find someone agreeable to help take care of my husband. Widow Wang from the west end of the village was a famously pretty figure who usually loved to crack dirty jokes with the men in the village. In my last life, after Chen Jiru passed the imperial examinations, this Widow Wang had even sent someone to make advances toward me, wanting to enter my household as a concubine, but I flatly rejected her. This time, I took the initiative and sought her out. I gave her 2 taels of silver and only asked her to do one thing. At night, once my mother-in-law is asleep, you go knock on our window and bring a bowl of hot soup to my husband. Widow Wang clutched the silver, laughing so hard her body swayed. Jintao, are you trying to get a concubine for Chen Shukai? I didn't say anything, just smiled. That night, sure enough, Widow Wang brought a bowl of chicken soup and knocked on Chen Jiru's window. In the next few days, Widow Wang's soup changed from chicken soup to fish soup and then to bone broth. The time she delivered the soup also got later and later. At first, Chen Jiru was still putting on the airs of a scholar, being stern with Widow Wang. But what kind of person was Widow Wang? Those eyes of hers were like hooks. In just a few days, Chen Jiru's initial scolding turned into playful complaints as he halfway gave in. As long as a woman was willing to be subservient to him, he couldn't care less if she was a lady from a good family or a flirtatious widow. That night, I heard Chen Jiru's muffled groans and Widow Wang's coquettish laughter coming from the room. "Hey, scholar Chen, your leg is giving you trouble. Let me help you wash your body." You stop moving around." "I am not the one moving around. It is this cloth that is being naughty." I reckoned it was about time, so I tossed 2 mice onto my mother-in-law's bed. My mother-in-law was woken up by the noise and of course also heard the indecent sounds in the house. She charged straight to her son's bedroom. "Jintao, you shameless bastard. Your man is injured and you are still acting like a slut." But what my mother-in-law saw was Widow Wang, her clothes half off straddling Chen Jiru. As for Chen Jiru, he was covered in lipstick marks, without a trace of a scholar's lofty bearing. The 2 of them were startled when they saw the mother-in-law enter. Chen Jiru lowered his voice. "Mother, why are you here?" Unflustered, Widow Wang slowly and deliberately got off Chen Jiru. "It is good that you saw. Anti-scholar Chen has had his way with me, so he must take me into his family. Otherwise, I will go to the county yamen and sue you for raping a common woman." My mother-in-law's wails nearly blew the roof off the house. "What a disgrace to our family. My son is still lying in bed, and someone's already rushing over to seduce him. That idiot Jintao. All she knows is how to work in the kitchen. She can't even keep an eye on her own man." As she cursed, she tried to grab and pull Widow Wang's hair. Widow Wang was no pushover either. She put her hands on her hips and cursed right back. "If Scholar Chen wasn't willing, could we have made it happen? If you are so capable, go manage your own son. Besides, if it weren't for his decent-looking face, do you think I'd be willing to marry a cripple?" Chen Jiru's face turned ashen with anger. He could only turn his head away, constantly muttering about it being unbefitting of a scholar. I watched this farce with a cold gaze. Only after they had caused enough of a scene did I slowly walk out. "Mother, since husband and sister Wang are so in love with each other, why don't we just let them be together?" The moment I said this, everyone was stunned. My mother-in-law looked at me in disbelief. "What did you say?" I said with a serious expression. I said, "I am requesting a divorce to let them be together." Chen Jiru turned his head and roared at me. "Jintao, are you insane?" I ignored him, just looking calmly at my mother-in-law. "I've been married into the Chen family for 3 years and still haven't borne any children. I dare not delay the Chen family's bloodline any longer. Right now, Jiru needs someone he fancies to take care of him personally, and Sister Wang is clearly more suitable than I am." I took out the divorce agreement I had already written and handed it to my mother-in-law. My mother-in-law clutched the divorce paper, her eyes darting as she said, "Since you haven't given our family any children, Your dowry should be left behind as compensation. I feigned humiliation and agreed through gritted teeth. I didn't want that bedding stained with Chenjiru's scent anyway. As for my savings, I had long ago hidden them away bit by bit, like an ant moving its home. Seeing me agree, my mother-in-law swiftly took Chenjiru's hand and pressed his fingerprint on it. You husband, jinxing star of misfortune, get the hell out. Don't come back and bring ruin to our family. Chenjiru's gaze shifted between me and Widow Wang's voluptuous body, and he tacitly agreed. I twitched the corner of my mouth. I would never tell him that Widow Wang had used a potent aphrodisiac on him, which is why he found her body so addictive. But that kind of medicine is poisonous. Even if Chenjiru gets my dowry, he probably won't live long enough to spend it. Holding the divorce paper in a small bundle, I walked out of the Chen residence. I had never felt so relieved. The villagers pointed and gossiped about me. Jin Tao is so pitiful. Her husband is crippled, and now her place has been taken by a widow. What is so pitiful? I'd say she is just ill, fated. Otherwise, how could Scholar Chen have fallen and broken his leg right before the imperial exams? Exactly, I listened to this gossip and just smiled. Marry Butcher Zhang. That would be just perfect. At the butcher shop at the head of the village, Zhang Daliang was swinging his knife, chopping bones. In my last life, when I was imprisoned in the backyard by the Chen family, sick and on the verge of death, it was Zhang Daliang who couldn't stand it and brought me my last mouthful of hot congee. It was also him who, after I died, wrapped me in a worn-out straw mat and buried me on the back mountain. I walked to the front of the butcher shop. Zhang Daliang had just finished chopping a large bone. He looked up, saw me, and the movement of his hands paused for a moment. He had a strong, baleful aura, and the village children would take a detour when they saw him. But beneath this fierce appearance, he hid a gentle heart, Jin Tao. He was a bit surprised. I placed my bundle on the chopping block and got straight to the point. Brother Zhang, I've divorced. He wiped his hands. Yeah, I heard, I said tentatively. The villagers all say that for a husband. Jinxer like me, only your baleful aura can keep me in check. Zhang Daliang's face turned a little red in the morning light. He turned his head away and said sullenly, Don't listen to their nonsense. It is not because you are a husband, Jinx. It is clearly that Scholar Chen who deserved it. I took a step closer, looking up at him. Brother Zhang, if I am willing to marry, are you willing to take me? Zhang Daliang was stunned. He looked at me. His mouth opened and closed, unable to utter a single word for a long time. I smirked. If you don't say anything, I'll take that as a yes. There is no one left in my parents' home. I am penniless now, and only have a few changes of clothes. If you despise me, then I don't mind. He hurriedly interrupted me, his voice so gruff it made the meat on the cutting board next to him tremble. After saying that, his face turned even redder, like the pig liver in his shop. Looking at his flustered state, I couldn't help but laugh out loud. All the grievances and hardships from my past and present lives vanished into thin air at this moment. I pointed to the small hut behind him. So, can I go in and rest my feet for a bit? You can. Zhang Daliang flusteredly led me inside. His small room was very basic, but tidy and clean. A bed, a table, 2 chairs. That was all he owned. I put down my bundle and turned to look at him. He stood at the doorway, not knowing where to put his hands. Big Brother Zhang, I called him softly. From now on, we'll live a good life together. He looked at me, and in his dark, shining eyes, emotions that I couldn't comprehend were swirling. After a long while, he nodded heavily. Okay, my wedding with Zhang Daliang was simple. We only invited the village chief to be a witness, had a one-table banquet, and that was considered the ceremony complete. The looks the villagers gave me were filled with pity and contempt. From a scholar's wife to a butcher's wife, in their eyes, I had fallen from the clouds into the mud. Me former mother-in-law even brought Widow Wang over to swagger and flaunt in my face. Widow Wang was holding her already showing belly, a smug look on her face. Jin Tao, see this? Now this is what you call a blessing. You are just a hen that can't lay eggs. It serves you right to be matched with a pig butcher. Shinjiro didn't come. I heard he has been staying home all day recently, his temper getting worse and worse, and he has even started frequenting brothels and gambling dens. I looked at my former mother, in-law's face, her wrinkles all crinkled up from smiling, and said politely, "Well, congratulations in advance on having a grandson soon." My tone was calm, but she couldn't stand it. "I must say, you, a merchant's daughter, are truly shameless. It has only been a few days since you divorced my son, and you've already remarried." I let out a snort of laughter. "Since you knew it was my happy occasion today, did you come here specifically to give me, your former daughter-in-law, some gift money?" My former mother-in-law was so angry her cheeks wouldn't stop trembling. She raised her hand to hit me. Zhang Dalian came over carrying a bowl of steaming meat soup and stood in front of me. "Let's see who dares touch my wife." I took the soup, and the warmth spread from my fingertips to my heart, with the tall and burly Zhang Dalian standing there. My former mother-in-law and widow Wang could only leave sulkily. That night, on my wedding night with Zhang Dalian, I finally knew what it truly felt like to be a woman. I secretly compared Chenjiru and Zhang Daliang, and a word somehow popped into my head: thick branches, large fruit. Maybe I'll soon be able to have my own child too. Speaking of children, in my last life, I took so much medicine and suffered so much just to have that ungrateful son. How did Widow Wang get pregnant so quickly? Seeing that I was distracted, Zhang Daliang shyly lowered his eyes. "Jin Tao, I've never been with a woman before. Does that mean I am no good?" I was stunned, torn between laughter and tears. "If you are still not man enough, then there are no real men left in this world." I reached out and wrapped my arms around his broad shoulders and back. That night, Zhang Daliang was like he'd been pumped full of adrenaline, putting in extra effort. In the time since I married Zhang Daliang, I've discovered that he doesn't talk much, but he considers me in everything he does. He was afraid I couldn't get used to the bloody smell of the butcher shop, so he specially built a small kitchen for me in the backyard. He knew I used to be a merchant's daughter and understood a bit about bookkeeping, so he handed all the family's money boxes over to me. "You manage the money, I can rest assured." When he said this, his eyes were sparkling. Holding that heavy money box, my heart was filled with mixed feelings. I emptied my savings, but what I got in return was Chenjiru's betrayal. I married Zhang Daliang without a penny to my name, yet he placed his entire fortune in my hands. That night, I started going over the family's finances. Zhang Daliang's butcher shop business was pretty good, but it was just a small-time operation, earning hard-earned money. In my previous life, after Chenjiru got into high school, I had relied on my exceptional skill in making braised meat to turn a small tavern into the most popular eatery in the capital city. Perhaps I could try again. I told Zhang Daliang my idea, and he didn't hesitate at all. "If you want to do it, just do it." My skill at making braised meat was passed down from my ancestors. The selection of ingredients, the control of the heat, the recipe, every single thing is extremely particular. When the first pot of braised meat was ready, the aroma wafted through half the village. The kid next door was drooling with craving, clinging to our courtyard wall and refusing to leave. Zhang Daliang's eyes were fixed on that pot of glistening red and fragrant braised meat. "Wife, this skill of yours is divine." I picked up the biggest piece of braised pig's trotter for him. "Have a taste." He took a bite, panting from the heat, but he couldn't bear to spit it out. "Delicious. This is better than what the head chefs at the restaurants in town make." With his approval, I felt even more confident. The next day, I wrapped the braised meat in oil paper and had Zhang Daliang take it to the butcher shop to sell. At first, the villagers were just curious. Zhang Daliang didn't say much, just cut a small plateful, placed it on the cutting board, and let everyone have a free taste. That rich aroma was already enticing enough on its own. After taking a bite, everyone's eyes lit up. "Give me a gin. I want this pig ear." In just a couple of hours, the big pot of braised meat I prepared was completely sold out. When counting the money at night, Zhang Daliang's hands were trembling. "Wife, we earned 10 days' worth of money in just one day." I looked at his excited face and smiled too. This is just the beginning. From that day on, our small business became more and more prosperous. Even some wealthy families from town specifically sent their servants to the village to buy from us. Our lives slowly got better. The way the villagers looked at me changed from pity to envy. On the other hand, life for the Chen family became more and more difficult. Chen Jiru's leg was sometimes better, sometimes worse, and would ache terribly on cloudy and rainy days. He became a cripple, drinking all day long and blaming everyone but himself. Widow Wang gave birth to a daughter. This greatly disappointed my former mother-in-law, who had been desperately hoping for a grandson. Her attitude toward Widow Wang plummeted. Without my financial support, and with one more mouth to feed in the house, their lives became stretched thin. My mother-in-law came to my meat stall more than once, making thinly veiled insults. "Some black-hearted person is living the good life now, and doesn't even think about who brought you out of your maiden home in the first place." Every time Zhang Daliang would shield me behind him. "My wife has nothing to do with your Chen family now. If you come and make trouble again, don't blame my knife for not recognizing people." The butcher knife in his hand was gleaming brightly, scaring my former mother-in-law. So much she ran off pissing her pants in terror. A few days later, Chen Jiru, leaning on a cane, also appeared in front of my butcher shop. Having not seen him for a few months, he had lost a lot of weight. His face was sallow, and his eyes were sunken. He no longer had the appearance of the spirited scholar he once was. He looked at me, his gaze complex. "Jin Tao." His voice was hoarse. I was busy cutting meat for a customer and didn't even look up. "What is it? Can we talk?" I put down my knife, wiped my hands, and looked at him. "Chen Shukai, you and I have had nothing to talk about for a long time. It is written crystal clear in black and white on the divorce papers." His face turned pale. Before I could say anything, Widow Wang, who was behind him, rushed forward and started cursing, pointing right at my nose. "You vixen, you are married yourself, yet you still come here to seduce my man." I looked at Widow Wang's face, twisted with jealousy, and found it laughable. "Don't flatter yourself." After saying that, I ignored them and turned to attend to other customers. Chen Jiru watched my busy figure, his hand holding the cane gripped tighter and tighter until his knuckles turned white. However, I still underestimated him. A few days later, late one night, the butcher shop caught fire. The fire was huge. Luckily, Zhang Daliang reacted quickly and pulled me out just in time. By the time the neighbors arrived with water buckets, half the shop had already been burned to charcoal. I glimpsed Chen Jiru hiding in the crowd not far away, a smug smile on his face. Zhang Daliang's eyes were red with anger, and grabbing a knife, he was about to go settle scores with Chen Jiru. He stopped him. "Don't go, we don't have any proof. Are we just going to let it go?" Zhang Daliang's voice was full of fury. I looked at him, my gaze calm. Of course not. The next day, as soon as it was light, I went to town. I got someone to help me spread a rumor. It said that I had a secret family recipe for braised meat, and my previous small-time operation was just me testing the waters. Now, I was planning to partner with a wealthy family to expand the business. As soon as the news got out, the owner of Fumin Lu was the first to come knocking, willing to offer 300 taels of silver for my secret recipe. I refused with a smile. "Shopkeeper Wang, this recipe of mine is not for sale. I am only looking for a partner. I'll provide the recipe and the skills. The partner provides the money and the shop, and we split the profits 70-30. I get 7, you get 3. The owner of Fumin Lu thought I was crazy. "You are just a countrywoman, and you dare to ask for so much." I didn't get angry. I just let him taste a small plate of braised snacks I had just made. After tasting it, his expression changed several times, and finally, he gritted his teeth and agreed. But our collaboration was ruined by someone before it even began. Chen Jiru went to the manager of Fumin Lu. He told the manager that I was promiscuous and unchaste, and also said the recipe I had was his Chen family's ancestral secret recipe, which I had stolen. He even produced a few pieces of paper with the so-called secret recipe written on them, claiming that was the real one. The manager of Fumanlu already harbored suspicions about me, so upon hearing what he said, he immediately believed him. Not only did he cancel our collaboration, but he also threatened to completely ruin my reputation. Chen Jiru deliberately came to my doorstep to shout, "Jin Tao, give me 100 taels, and we'll let this matter drop." I curled my lips into a sarcastic smile and deliberately raised my voice to call over the neighbors. "Everyone, come and be the judge. Chen Jiru is not only slandering me for having an affair, but he is also trying to extort money." Seeing everyone pointing and gossiping, Chen Jiru got angry and stormed off. "We'll see." I had no time to get entangled with Chen Jiru, because the person I was truly waiting for had arrived. A luxuriously dressed young gentleman walked straight up to me. "You are Jin Tao? I hear you have a secret recipe for braised meat?" I nodded. "You are well informed, young master. My name is Qin Feng. I am the young master of the Yuelai Inn. What Fumanlu doesn't want, I want. The terms are still a 70-30 split. You just need to focus on making your braised meat." Yuelai Inn and Fumanlu Restaurant were the two biggest restaurants in town, and had always been competitors. I even had to thank Chen Jiru for the scene he caused, as it made my braised meat even more famous. I accepted Qin Feng's offer of partnership. Qin Feng opened a new shop across from Fumanlu. On the opening day, firecrackers roared in unison, and there was a sea of people. Qin Feng was great at business. He made the whole scene incredibly grand, but over at Fumanlu, the place was completely deserted. Their manager was so angry his face turned green. Chen Jiru came too, and his expression was even uglier than the Fumanlu manager's. He rushed over. "Jin Tao, you bitch. Why do you get to live a better life than me?" Before he could even finish talking, Zhang Daliang kicked him to the ground. "Watch your mouth. If you dare talk nonsense about my wife again, I'll rip your mouth off." Chen Jiru got up from the ground in a sorry state, pointing at me, and then at Zhang Daliang. "Fine, just fine. You just wait." The business at the braised meat shop was even better than I imagined. Qin Feng not only opened a shop in town, but also sold my braised meats to several surrounding county towns. We were raking it in. With the first money I earned, I built a large house with gray bricks and tiles in the village. Every time my former mother-in-law and widow Wang passed by, they would shoot me a glare filled with jealousy and venom. But life for the Chen family was getting harder and harder. Chen Jiru fell ill again. Seeing a doctor and getting medicine used up the last of the family's savings. The physician said Chen Jiru used too many drugs for sex, and it would be difficult for him to have children in the future. Moreover, the drug is bad for the brain, and might even make a person mentally confused. When Chen Jiru heard this, he gave Widow Wang a vicious beating over her head and face. Widow Wang wouldn't let it go, and started making a scene demanding a divorce. "Chen Jiru, you useless thing. You can't even get it up yourself without drugs, and you still blame me." Chen Jiru's mother also threw a tantrum, demanding that Widow Wang divorce Chen Jiru and leave the child and dowry behind. But Widow Wang said, "You want money, I have none. You want my life, you can have it. This child isn't Chen Jiru's seed, she is Steward Zhou's. I am still counting on her to get into the Zhou family as a concubine." That very day, Widow Wang took all the valuables in the house and ran off, holding her daughter. Now that Chen Jiru is lame, he doesn't dare to go to Master Zhou to demand an explanation. He could only take his anger out on his family at home, smashing all the pots and pans, and also blaming his old mother for being harsh and driving away his 2 wives. His old mother was so angry, she cursed Chen Jiru all day for being unfilial. The mother and son grew estranged. Not long after, Chen Jiru's old mother had a stroke, her face became crooked, and she drooled uncontrollably. Chen Jiru was heartless enough that after tending to her bedpan and urine for a few days, he got tired of it and just starved his old mother to death. This caused a huge stir in the village, and all the neighbors said behind his back that Chenjiru was a real piece of scum. Chenjiru felt that I had ruined everything for him and started trying every means possible to get revenge on me. He first spread rumors, saying the ingredients for my braised meat were unclean, that it was made from dead pigs. Qin Feng directly brought over officers from the county yamen and had them inspect every single one of our back kitchen's procedures in front of everyone. The rumors collapsed on their own. Not giving up, Chenjiru wrote one anonymous letter after another and sent them to the county yamen and to Qin Feng's home. He portrayed me as a wicked and adulterous woman. He said my relationship with Qin Feng was improper, and that I had used my body to get the opportunity to cooperate. He slung all the mud he could possibly think of at me. Some people started to point fingers at me. Even the way the staff in the shop looked at me became a bit strange. Qin Feng found me and handed me those anonymous letters. Jin Tao, these, how do you explain them? I picked up a letter, looked at the familiar handwriting on it, and smiled. Young Master Qin, do you believe this? Qin Feng looked at me and shook his head. I don't, but these rumors will affect our business. I understood Qin Feng's meaning. It is time to end this. I asked Qin Feng to do me a favor. Have him announce to the public that, unable to bear the harassment from the rumors, the braised food shop has decided to close down. At the same time, release the news that I fell seriously ill because of this matter and am bedridden. I heard that when Chenjiru heard this news, he laughed triumphantly. Retribution. This is all retribution, Jin Tao. You have this day coming. A few days later, I had Zhang Daliang make a trip to the Chen family's house. Zhang Daliang, as I instructed, told Chenjiru that I was very sick and about to die. Before I die, I want to see him one last time. Chenjiru hesitated. In the end, he still came to the front of my family's big blue brick and tile house, leaning on a cane. When Chenjiru walked into the room, I was weakly leaning against the headboard. He looked at my pale face, his eyes flickering. What did you ask me here for? I coughed a couple of times, my breath as faint as a thread. Jiru, we were husband and wife, after all. I am about to die. There is something I want to give you. I took out a wooden box from under the pillow and handed it to him. This is my secret recipe for braised meat. Chenjiru was stunned. He took the box in disbelief and upon opening it, saw that it was indeed a yellowed booklet, densely filled with writing. Why are you giving this to me? Because I looked at him, a tear sliding from the corner of my eye. You are still in my heart. Take this, and you'll have a way to make a living in the future. Chenjiru looked at the secret formula in his hand, and then looked at me. The doubt in his eyes slowly turned into greed. He held the secret formula and turned to leave. Wait, I called out to him. What else is there? His tone was already impatient. Jiru, can you hug me one last time? I looked at him pitifully. Chenjiru's body stiffened. He looked at me, finally walked over, leaned down, and gave me a symbolic hug. The moment he hugged me, Qin Feng rushed in with a large group of people. There were bailiffs from the county yamen, town squires, and neighbors from the street. Chenjiru was stunned. He looked at the crowd at the door, and then looked at me. I sat up from the bed, pointed at him, and cried out to the crowd. Elders and folks, you have to get justice for me. That Chenjiru. He actually tried to take advantage of me while I was seriously ill. He also stole my secret recipe. I was a sobbing mess, and Chenjiru couldn't defend himself. It is not true, it was her. She seduced me, but no one believed him because he had already harmed me several times before, and it was something everyone had witnessed. Qin Feng stepped forward, looking coldly at the secret recipe in his hand. The recipe is right in your hands. What else do you have to say? Chenjiru's pupils constricted. This recipe, she gifted it to me. Never mind the bailiffs. Even the neighbors in the street didn't believe these words. How is that possible? Jin Tao would have to have gone crazy to give this golden goose to a heartless man like you. And to think we used to call him scholar. This man could even starve his own old mother to death. He is truly vicious and heartless. The color drained completely from Chenjiru's face. He wanted to run, but his crippled leg wouldn't obey him, and his whole body crumpled to the ground. The bailiff looked at Chenjiru on the ground and said coldly, "Chenjiru, you starved your own mother to death, ruined someone's reputation, and stole their property. We have both witnesses and physical evidence." "No, it is not like that." Chenjiru crawled backwards on all fours, incoherently trying to defend himself. "It was that venomous woman Jin Tao who framed me. Officer, don't believe her." He pointed at me in despair, his eyes filled with venomous hatred. Zhang Daliang took a step forward, pulled me into his arms, and blocked me from Chenjiru's sight. The bailiff walked up and put Chenjiru directly into shackles. "Take him away." As Chenjiru was being dragged away, he was still cursing non-stop. "Jin Tao, you'll die a horrible death." Through Qin Feng's maneuvering, Chenjiru was sentenced to 10 years of hard labor. The day he was escorted to the northwest borderlands, I took Zhang Daliang to see him off for the last time. Chenjiru was in a prison uniform, wearing handcuffs and shackles. His hair was disheveled, and he looked gaunt. When he saw me, his eyes erupted with overwhelming hatred. "I won't let you go even if I become a ghost." I just smiled without a word, took a steamed bun from the basket, and directly stuffed it into his mouth to stop his curses. "Chenjiru, you ruined the first half of my life, so I'll destroy the rest of your future. From now on, we owe each other nothing. As for becoming a ghost, we'll talk about it after you are dead." Having completely dealt with the trouble that was Chenjiru, my business also got back on the right track. A year later, I gave birth to a chubby, fair-skinned son. Zhang Daliang held our son, grinning from ear to ear. My life was peaceful and happy, until that day, a familiar horse-drawn carriage stopped at the entrance of my shop. A maidservant got down from the carriage and said to me respectfully, "Lady Jintao, my young mistress invites you." I lifted my head and saw the Prime Minister's daughter, Li Yanran, in the carriage, the woman I had hated for a whole lifetime in my past life. She still had that same high and mighty look, only with a bit more maturity and sharpness in her eyes. "Lady Jintao, I've long heard of your name." She smiled at me. I don't know why she would come. Between us, there shouldn't have been any more intersection. "I wonder, Miss Lai, what business do you have with me?" "I want to discuss a business deal with you." Li Yanran said she had tasted my braised food and thought it was a delicacy from heaven. She wants to bring my braised food business to the capital city. She is willing to pay any price for my secret recipe. I looked at her. "Miss Li, my recipe is not for sale. However, if you want to cooperate, I can consider it." I proposed the same terms as before, a 3-7 split. To my surprise, she agreed without any hesitation. I was a bit surprised. "Aren't you afraid I'll cheat you?" She shook her head. "I trust my judgment, and I also trust your skill. Besides," she looked at me. With something in her eyes I couldn't understand, "I just feel that we were meant to be friends." I was stunned. The collaboration with Li Yanran went smoother than I had imagined. My braised food sold extremely well in the capital city, and I opened a shop of my own. Even the imperial consorts in the palace couldn't stop praising my braised food. With Li Yanran's help, I became an imperial merchant and truly attained immense wealth. I bought a large mansion and brought Zhang Daliang and our son to the capital city. Zhang Daliang looked at everything before him, his eyes wide. "Wife, I, a mere pig butcher, can also live a life like this?" I held his hand. "You are my husband and the father of my son. This is all what we've earned together through hard work." He looked at me and nodded heavily. Li Yanran and I also became real friends. We drank tea together, went shopping together, and discussed business together. I discovered that she wasn't the pampered, rich young lady I had imagined. She was smart, decisive, and had her own opinions. She said she admired women like me who carved out a world for themselves with their own 2 hands. Listening to her words, I thought of my past life again. Back then, Chenjiru married Li Yanran and got the smooth path to success he wanted. But what about Li Yanran? What did she get? a hypocritical and despicable husband. I suddenly felt that my past, life self was ridiculous. I hated Lianren my whole life, and resented her my whole life. In the end, we were both blinded by the same man. On this day, Lianren and I were drinking tea in a restaurant, listening to the storyteller recount strange and unusual tales. Suddenly, I heard a familiar name. The storyteller said that news came from the Northwest Grand Camp, that a convict laborer named Chen Jiru, during a conflict with a foreign tribe, actually deserted in the face of battle, and was subsequently hacked to death. My hand holding the teacup tightened. Chen Jiru was dead, and in such a disgraceful way he left his name in the annals of history. Lianren noticed that something was off with me. "What is wrong?" I shook my head. "It is nothing. I just thought of an old acquaintance." As the cup of tea was finished, past events and old memories all dissipated like smoke. I walked out of the restaurant and saw Zhang Daliang holding our son, waiting for me at the street corner. When he saw me, he showed a simple, honest smile. My son reached out his little hands, babbling "Mama." The sunlight fell on them, warm and bright. I walked over, took Zhang Daliang's hand, and took our son. This is where I truly belong for that path to success that I severed with my own hands, and that person who had long ago disappeared at the end of the road. Just let it stay in my past life forever.